video up at the very beginning of last season, of the off season, when the season first ended. I said, you go and get this girl to play the 4, and she is showing serious interest in joining the Indiana Fever, and that is one Azure Stevens, as she took to social media and she posted this. She said, ha ha ha, Azure, come on girl, come on girl, we want you in Indiana. You talk about the
Indiana Fever just made the most important move of their offseason. And honestly, it might be one of the most important signings in the entire history of the franchise. Azure Stevens is officially a Fever. Let that sink in for a second. The best stretch forward available in free agency. A former WNBA champion. A 6'6" nightmare for every defense in the league is now suiting up alongside Caitlin Clark. And if you have been paying any attention to this offseason, you already know this moment has been building for months. Before we get into all of it, if you're new here and you love WNBA content, drama, and everything Caitlin Clark, do yourself a favor right now and hit that subscribe button. We drop videos every time something major happens in women's basketball. And trust me, with the Indiana Fever this season, that is going to be very, very often.
This fit, bro. This is a seamless fit, putting Azure Stevens on the Indiana Fever. It is a seamless fit, man. I'm telling you, this is the perfect situation for Azure Stevens. And this here is courtesy of Sports Illustrated, where they talked about Azure Stevens being one of the best fits for the Indiana Fever. Here it says, Stevens made it through the expansion draft without hearing her name called, and could quickly find herself at the center of one of the few bidding wars that will actually take place in free agency. The 30-year-old played the...
Now, let us talk about what just happened, why it happened, and exactly why this changes everything for Indiana's 2026 season. The player nobody fully appreciated. Most casual fans know Azure Stevens as that tall, skilled forward who bounced around the league for a few years. The Dallas Wings, the Chicago Sky, the Los Angeles Sparks. But if that is all you know about her, you have been seriously underselling one of the most complete forwards in women's basketball. Stevens was born on January 2nd, 1996, making her 30 years old heading into this season. She played her college basketball at the University of Connecticut, one of the most storied programs in the history of the sport. And she was selected 6th overall in the 2018 WNBA Draft by the Dallas Wings. 6th overall. That tells you everything about how highly scouts valued her coming out of UConn. She made the all-rookie team that year, and the basketball world started paying attention. But it was what happened in Chicago that truly defined who Azure Stevens is as a player and as a competitor.
She can do it all offensively, and she doesn't need to be the primary option. She don't need to be the number 2 option. She don't even need to be the number 3 option. You know why? Because she was none of those things with the LA Sparks. And by the way, for the people that are like, oh, well, the Sparks will probably keep, it's a 0. She's not going back to LA. They're keeping Cameron Brink. You drafted Cameron Brink that high, what, number 2 overall? You didn't draft her number 2 overall to be bringing her off the bench, okay? They're going to be rolling with Rakia Jackson, Kelsey Plum, Cameron Brink, and De'Erica Hamby, okay?
In 2021, the Chicago Sky won the WNBA championship, and Stevens was not just on that roster collecting a ring as a bench piece. She was a genuine contributor. She understood her role, she performed it at a high level, and she knows exactly what a championship team looks and feels like from the inside. That is not something you can teach a player. That is experience that only comes from having been in those moments, under that pressure, in the biggest games of the season. When the Fever eventually go deep in the playoffs this year, that experience is going to matter a lot. A 2025 season that nobody saw coming. Here is where things get really interesting, because before the 2025 season, there was a legitimate conversation about whether Stevens had already peaked. She dealt with significant injury problems earlier in her career, missed time in multiple seasons, and some people were starting to write her off as a player who never quite reached her full potential. Then she went out and had the best season of her entire career. Playing for the Los Angeles Sparks in 2025, Stevens averaged 12.8 points per game. She pulled down 8 rebounds per game. She dished out 2.1 assists. She recorded 1.2 steals and 1.1 blocks per game. She played 44 games, appeared in 28.4 minutes per night, and was one of the most consistent players on a Sparks team that struggled for much of the year.
Like Azure Stevens that can space the floor. Listen, Indiana Fever, I think you need to offer a competitive amount. But that's the whole thing with this Kelsey thing. She gonna eat up so much money. Will you be able to get a Azure and bring back Sophie and Lexi and like, will you be able to do all of that? I don't know, but we need to make a legitimate competitive offer for Azure Stevens. I'm telling you that right now. Okay, it says 6'6", a forward who can offer some rim protection, switch onto perimeter players, crash the boards, and space the floor, could be a difference maker for several teams, Fever included.
But the number that changes everything, the number that makes every single WNBA general manager sit up and take notice, is this one: 38% from three-point range. 38% from a 6'6" forward. Let that breathe for a second. In today's WNBA, the teams that win championships are the ones who can space the floor, create driving lanes for their guards, and punish defenses who collapse on their stars. The league has evolved. You cannot win with a traditional post-up center who clogs the paint and kills spacing. You need bigs who can step out to the arc and make opponents pay. Stevens does not just check that box, she excels at it. And she does it while also protecting the rim, crashing the boards, and guarding multiple positions on defense. That combination, the shooting, the length, the versatility, makes her one of the most valuable players on the open market. And the Fever just locked her up. She basically announced herself.
She can get hot, she can defend it, she can rebound it, she can shoot it, and she does not have to be ball dominant. She does not have to be the focal point. I'm just glad that, hey, look, you see what's going on, Azure. You see what's going on over here, Azure. The whole world will be watching. You want you entering your prime at 30. You in your prime. You want the world watching you? Or do you want to go over there to Dallas where nobody's watching? They can't even sell out the gyms. You playing in empty gyms. You could come play every game sold out, home and away. Caitlin Clark, best show in sports. You gonna do that? Or you gonna turn that down to go somewhere where nobody's gonna watch you, where your WNBA career will fade into abyss?
Now here is the part of this story that fans are going to be talking about for a long time, because Azure Stevens did not exactly keep her interest in Indiana secret. In fact, she was practically wearing a sign. It started back in January of 2026, during the second season of Unrivaled in Miami. Fever fans on social media started flooding her mentions, telling her she needed to come to Indiana. Most players in her position would scroll past those comments and move on. Stevens did the opposite. She responded. She dropped eye emojis. She liked posts. She engaged with fans who were literally photoshopping her into a Fever jersey. Then it escalated further. A fan posted a graphic of Stevens wearing Indiana's colors and tagged her directly. She did not just double tap it. She responded with a reaction that Fever Nation absolutely lost their minds over. Another fan told her the jersey would look even better if she actually played in it. Her reply nearly broke the internet. But the moment that truly sent everything into overdrive was when Stevens posted a set of photos on Instagram featuring different WNBA jerseys from teams she had been associated with throughout her career. Dallas, Chicago, Los Angeles, all teams she had actually played for, all representing her past. And then there was Indiana, an Indiana Fever jersey, included in that post, for a team she had never played a single minute for. And to make it impossible to ignore, fans noticed she added a specific reaction to the Fever photo that she did not add to any of the others. Every other jersey in that collection represented somewhere she had already been. The Fever jersey represented somewhere she was trying to go. That is not an accident. That is a player making her intentions crystal clear without saying a single official word. And the Fever front office, to their enormous credit, got the message. The problem this signing solves. To truly understand what Azure Stevens means for Indiana, you have to understand the very specific problem she is being brought in to fix. And that problem has been obvious since Caitlin Clark arrived in Indianapolis. The Fever needed a stretch big. Not just any big, not just a traditional rebounder, not just a shot blocker. They needed a forward who could do all of those things while also stepping out to the three-point line and making defenses pay. Because here is the reality of what it is like to guard Caitlin Clark. Clark averaged 18.5 points, and 8.5 assists per game across her first 2 WNBA seasons. She is one of the most gifted passers the league has ever seen. She reads defenses faster than almost anyone on the floor. She can find cutters, spot up shooters, and post players with equal precision. But that generational passing ability only works if the players around her are positioned in ways that punish defenders. When defenses collapse on Clark's drives, she needs a big at the elbow or the arc who makes them regret that decision. Without a shooter at the 4 position, teams can sag 2 defenders into the paint and dare Clark to kick it out to a player who is not a shooting threat. That takes away driving lanes. It slows the offense. It takes the pressure off the defense. With Azure Stevens standing at the arc shooting 38% from 3, that option disappears entirely. Defenders cannot leave her. They cannot sag. They have to make a choice, and every choice they make opens something else up for the Fever's offense to attack. Think about the 2025 season and everything that team went through. Caitlin Clark went down with a groin injury in mid-July and never came back. Sophie Cunningham dealt with a knee injury. Sydney Carlson tore her ACL. Ari McDonald fractured her foot. Chloe Bibby went down with a knee injury. At one point, the Fever had 6 players on the injured list and rostered 18 different players throughout the season. And yet, they still made the playoffs. They beat the Atlanta Dream in the first round, winning a playoff series for the first time since 2015. They pushed the Las Vegas Aces to 5 games in the second round before being eliminated. Without their franchise player for half the year, surrounded by a revolving door of roster moves, they came within 2 games of the WNBA Finals. Imagine what that same team looks like fully healthy, with Clark running point, with Kelsey Mitchell in her prime, with Aaliyah Boston dominating the paint, and now, with Azure Stevens spacing the floor, protecting the rim, and bringing championship experience to a locker room that is hungry for one. That is not just a playoff team. That is a finals team. The chemistry that money cannot buy. One of the most underrated parts of this signing is something that does not show up in any stat sheet, but every basketball coach will tell you matters more than almost anything else on the floor. Chemistry, timing, trust. Those things take time to build between teammates. You have to learn each other's tendencies. You have to know when your teammate is going to cut, when they want the ball, when they are in rhythm, and when they need you to take the pressure off. That process normally takes an entire season, sometimes 2. Azure Stevens is walking into Indianapolis with a head start that most free agents never get. During the first season of Unrivaled, Stevens played for Rose BC alongside Lexi Hull, the Fever's sharpshooting wing and defensive specialist. They did not just share a locker room. They won a championship together. Stevens put up 19 points and 18 rebounds in the Unrivaled championship game. She was the best player on the floor in the biggest game of that tournament, and Hull was right there with her. They know each other. They have competed under pressure together. That bond is already real. Then, in the second season of Unrivaled, Stevens was traded to Hive BC, where she played alongside Kelsey Mitchell. So now she has built meaningful playing relationships with 2 of the most important pieces in the Indiana Fever starting lineup, before playing a single WNBA game with them. When Stevens and Hull set a screen together in May, it is not going to take time to figure out. When Stevens catches a pass from Mitchell in transition, she already knows where Mitchell wants her to be. That kind of familiarity is something teams spend entire seasons trying to manufacture. The Fever essentially got it for free as a bonus that came with this signing. The lineup that should scare everyone. Let me paint a picture for you, because this is where this story goes from exciting to genuinely terrifying for the rest of the WNBA. Caitlin Clark at the point guard position, running the offense, creating chaos with her shooting range and her vision. She's a threat from literally half court. Defenders have to pick her up as soon as she crosses center. That creates space before she even initiates the offense. Kelsey Mitchell next to her, the veteran scorer who averaged over 16 points per game and essentially carried the Fever through the 2025 playoffs when Clark was out. She can create her own shot off the dribble, hit mid-range jumpers, and get to the free throw line. She is the ultimate secondary option on this roster. Lexi Hull on the wing, the defensive specialist who shot 39% from three-point range last season and plays with an edge and intensity that the Fever desperately need on the perimeter defensively. Aaliyah Boston at the center position, the former number 1 overall pick and 3-time All-Star who dominates the painted area. She sets elite screens, finishes around the basket, and is one of the most fundamentally sound big players in the entire league. And at the 4, Azure Stevens. 6'6", 38% from 3. 8 rebounds per game. 1.1 blocks per game. Capable of guarding the perimeter or protecting the rim, depending on what the defense requires. You cannot game plan against that lineup. If you try to double Clark, Stevens is standing at the arc ready to fire. If you collapse into the paint to stop Boston, Clark is threading needle passes to shooters on the perimeter. If you try to exploit a mismatch on defense, Stevens can cover positions 1 through 5 with her length and lateral quickness. Every single defensive adjustment you make opens up something worse on the other end. That is a championship caliber lineup. That is the kind of starting 5 that gives coaches across the league nightmares in April, addressing every reason people said it would not work. Now, before this signing happened, there were people out there trying to talk themselves out of it. And even now that it is done, you will still find skeptics. So let us deal with every argument head on. The first thing people said was that Stevens is 30 years old and past her prime, to which the only appropriate response is, did you watch 2025? She averaged career bests across nearly every statistical category. Her shooting percentage improved. Her rebounds went up. Her defensive impact was at an all-time high. A player who is past their prime does not do that. A player who is past their prime does not get better every single year. A player who is past their prime does not have their best professional season at 29 years old. And let us talk about age in the WNBA specifically, because 30 is not old in women's basketball. Diana Taurasi was playing at an elite level well into her 40s. Sue Bird was running point guard for the Seattle Storm at age 41. Dwayne Bonner, which is spelled D-W-Y-N-E, came to Indiana at 34 years old and was one of the most important players on that team. Stevens has at least 3 to 4 elite years left. Those years happen to line up perfectly with the Fever's championship window. That is not a coincidence. That is ideal timing. The second argument was injury history, and that one deserves a more honest answer, because yes, Stevens has dealt with injuries. She missed time with a foot issue in 2019. She had a knee problem in 2020. She had arm surgery that kept her out of the first half of the 2024 season. But here's what people keep leaving out. She came back from all of it, and in 2025, she played 44 games for the Sparks and looked better than she ever has. A player who can come back from multiple significant injuries and post career best numbers is not a fragile player. That is a resilient one. Monitoring her workload throughout the season is a reasonable precaution, but that injury history is absolutely not a reason to walk away from a talent of this caliber. The third argument was that the Fever should have focused on younger options through the draft. Indiana had the 10th overall pick in the 2026 draft, and there are talented players coming into the league. But here is the fundamental problem with that logic. Rookies take time to develop. They go through growing pains. They struggle on defense. They get lost in late game situations. They are not ready for playoff pressure on night one. The Fever's championship window is open right now. Caitlin Clark is entering her 3rd WNBA season. Aaliyah Boston is in the prime of her career. Kelsey Mitchell just proved she could be a franchise cornerstone. You do not disrespect that window by handing a starting spot to a rookie and hoping for the best. You bring in a proven winner, someone who has already held a championship trophy, and you let her show younger players what winning looks like up close. Why Indiana was always the right destination. Here is a truth that does not get talked about enough. Azure Stevens did not just choose Indiana for basketball reasons. Even though the basketball reasons are plenty good enough on their own. She chose Indiana because of what it means to be a Fever player right now. The Indiana Fever led the WNBA in attendance last season. Their games drew millions of television viewers. Caitlin Clark is the most talked about player in women's basketball and arguably one of the most talked about athletes in all of American sports. Being her teammate means being on the biggest stage in the league every single night. It means national television exposure. It means endorsement opportunities that simply do not exist at other franchises. Other teams could have offered Stevens a roster spot. The Connecticut Sun could use her versatility. The Seattle Storm would love her frontcourt depth. Her former team in Chicago might have tried to bring her back, but none of those teams could offer what Indiana offers. The combination of a legitimate title contender, a generational talent to play alongside, and the kind of visibility that turns solid players into household names. Stevens clearly understood that. The social media hints, the jerseys, the comments, all of it was not just about basketball. It was about choosing the right moment and the right stage to make the defining chapter of her career as memorable as possible. And she chose Indiana. What happens next? The 2026 WNBA season tips off on May 8th. Training camp opens on April 19th. That means Stevens has weeks to get on the floor with Clark, Mitchell, Boston, and Hull before the games start counting. It is a short runway, but as we already established, the chemistry foundation is already there. The Fever are going into this season with legitimate championship expectations. Not hope, not optimism, expectations. Because this roster, when healthy and functioning at full capacity, has no clear weakness. It has a generational playmaker, proven scorers, elite defense, rebounding, shooting, and now it has a certified champion who knows what it takes to go all the way. Every other team in the WNBA is looking at what Indiana just built and feeling the pressure. The Las Vegas Aces are still dangerous. The New York Liberty are loaded. The Connecticut Sun and Seattle Storm will compete. But nobody in the league just made a signing that changes the entire conversation like the Fever did by landing Azure Stevens. This is a franchise that was dormant for nearly a decade before Caitlin Clark walked through the door. She rebuilt it single-handedly in terms of visibility and expectations. Now the front office has answered the call by surrounding her with exactly what she needed. This is no longer a young team figuring things out. This is a contender that knows it is a contender. Free agency officially opens on April 12th with the signing period beginning April 16th, and Indiana did not waste a single second getting this done. That urgency, that commitment from the front office tells you everything about where this organization is headed. The missing piece is no longer missing. The stretch four who spaces the floor for Clark, protects the rim with Boston, and brings championship DNA to a locker room full of talent. She just put on the blue and gold. And the rest of the WNBA had better be paying attention. Think about it this way. Last season, without Caitlin Clark for half the year, the Indiana Fever came within 2 wins of the WNBA Finals. What do you think happens when this lineup takes the floor in May with everybody healthy, everybody bought in, and a 6'6" three-point threat making defensive schemes completely fall apart? Drop your answer in the comments below. Do you think the Fever win the championship in 2026? And who do you think their biggest competition will be? I want to hear every opinion, every prediction, and every take. This comment section is about to be electric. And if you are not subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell right now, because this Fever team is going to make news constantly from now until the trophy is handed out. You do not want to miss a single moment of what is coming. I will see you in the next one.